The worst betrayal of my life happened on my birthday. Not when someone stole from me. Not when someone lied to me. But when my own parents looked me in the eyes, handed back my house key, and said, "We need space." 3 months later, they were standing outside a locked conference room, begging me to undo something I had every legal right to do. By then, it was too late. My name is Ethan Carter. I was 34 years old, a corporate attorney, and the oldest child in my family. Growing up, I believed my family was close. Not perfect, but close. My father, Richard, was respected by everyone. Calm. Intelligent. Disciplined. My mother, Linda, was the social center of every gathering. Then there was my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe had always been the favorite. Everyone knew it. Nobody said it. But everyone knew. When Chloe dropped out of college twice, my parents paid her rent. When she crashed her car, they bought her another one. When she started a business that failed within 8 months, they quietly covered the debt. Whenever I struggled, the answer was always the same. "You'll figure it out." And I usually did. I built my career from the ground up. Worked 80-hour weeks. Missed vacations. Missed relationships. Missed birthdays. Ironically, the birthday that changed everything was the first one I'd celebrated with my family in years. My 34th. I rented a private room at a restaurant. Nothing extravagant. Just dinner. Family. Friends. A chance to reconnect. At least that was what I thought. Dinner started normally. People laughed. Stories were shared. Wine flowed. Then my father stood up. He tapped his glass. The room became quiet. I expected a toast. Instead, he cleared his throat. "Ethan, your mother and I have something important to say." I smiled. Then I noticed neither of them looked happy. My stomach tightened. My mother folded her hands. My father spoke again. "We think it's best if we create some distance." The room froze. I laughed nervously. "What?" My mother wouldn't even look at me. "We need space." I felt heat rush into my face. Space from what? Nobody answered. My sister stared at the table. My father sighed. "There has been tension in the family." Tension? I was completely confused. What tension? Then my mother finally looked up. And what she said shattered me. "Everything always becomes about you." I honestly thought I had misheard her. About me? I was the child who rarely asked for anything. The child who solved his own problems. The child who quietly paid bills when relatives needed help. The child who showed up every time someone called. Yet somehow I was the problem. The room was silent. My friends looked horrified. I felt humiliated. Like I was being publicly fired from my own family. Then my father reached into his pocket. He placed a key on the table. The spare key to their home. "We think some boundaries would be healthy." I couldn't speak. My birthday dinner ended 20 minutes later. People left awkwardly. Nobody knew what to say. Honestly, neither did I. That night, I sat alone in my apartment replaying every moment. What had I done? What was really happening? And why did it feel like everyone knew something I didn't? The next few weeks were torture. My calls went unanswered. Texts ignored. Family events happened without me. Photos appeared online. Smiling faces. Birthday parties. Barbecues. Vacations. I wasn't invited to any of them. For the first time in my life, I felt completely disposable. Then came twist number 1. One evening I received a call from my Uncle David. He sounded nervous. "Ethan, there's something you need to know." My chest tightened. "What is it?" He hesitated. Then he told me the truth. My parents had been telling relatives I requested distance. I nearly dropped my phone. What? They said you were too busy for family. I couldn't believe it. They had cut me off. Then blamed me for it. But Uncle David wasn't finished. There was another thing. I sat down. What? They've been moving money. My heart stopped. What kind of money? The family trust. Now things started making sense. The Carter family trust wasn't enormous. But it wasn't small either. It held several commercial properties my grandfather had built over decades. The trust existed for one purpose: to benefit future generations equally. Every major decision required approval from all trustees, including me, because my grandfather had appointed me years earlier. At the time, I thought it was symbolic. Apparently, it wasn't. Uncle David lowered his voice. I think they're trying to restructure it. Without me? Yes. Suddenly every piece clicked together. The distancing. The isolation. The lies. They weren't removing me emotionally. They were removing me strategically. I spent the next week investigating. And what I found left me sick. There were meetings I hadn't been informed about. Documents I hadn't received. Property evaluations happening quietly behind closed doors. The plan seemed simple. Push Ethan out. Make him look absent. Then redirect assets toward Chloe. Legally. Permanently. I barely slept. Part of me wanted to confront them immediately. But another part wanted proof. Real proof. Then came twist number 2. The person who handed me that proof was Chloe herself. At midnight. Drunk. Crying. She showed up outside my apartment. When I opened the door, she looked broken. I didn't know. My stomach dropped. Know what? The trust. She started sobbing. Apparently, my parents had promised her everything. The properties. The income. The future. But they never explained where it was coming from. They told her I had agreed. That I wanted her taken care of. When she accidentally overheard a private conversation, she discovered the truth. I hadn't agreed to anything. I hadn't even been informed. For the first time in years, I saw genuine guilt in my sister's eyes. They lied to both of us. That sentence changed everything. Because suddenly this wasn't Ethan versus Chloe. It was 2 children realizing they had been manipulated differently. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with Trust Council. As trustee, I exercised a clause my grandfather had personally insisted on decades earlier. If there was evidence of misconduct, any trustee could request a temporary freeze. And that's exactly what I did. The family trust froze immediately. Every transfer. Every restructuring attempt. Every asset movement. Frozen. Legally. Completely. 2 days later my phone exploded. Calls. Texts. Voicemails. My mother cried. My father demanded explanations. Relatives suddenly remembered I existed. The people who needed space couldn't stop calling. I ignored them all. Then came the final confrontation. The trust attorney scheduled a formal review. Everyone attended. My parents. My sister. My uncle. The legal team. And me. For nearly 3 hours documents were reviewed. Emails examined. Meeting records analyzed. The deeper they looked, the worse it became. My parents hadn't just excluded me. They had intentionally concealed information from a trustee. A serious violation. Then the final email appeared on the screen. The room went silent. It was from my father. Written 6 months earlier. One sentence stood out. If Ethan remains involved, this becomes impossible. Nobody spoke. Not even him. The truth was finally visible. No excuses. No misunderstandings. No confusion. Just proof. My mother started crying. My father stared at the floor. For the first time in my life, he looked small. Very small. The attorneys recommended immediate corrective measures. The restructuring plan was terminated. New oversight rules were added. Independent audits became mandatory. And both of my parents were removed from certain administrative responsibilities. Everything my grandfather built was protected. Exactly as he intended. But surprisingly, that wasn't the most painful moment. The most painful moment came afterward. When my father approached me alone in the parking lot. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Defeated. Ethan. I turned around. He struggled to find words. Then he finally said, "I thought I was helping your sister." I stared at him. By sacrificing your son? His eyes filled with regret. And for once, he had no answer. Just silence. Months passed. Then a year. Eventually the family changed. Not perfectly. But honestly. My parents entered counseling. Chloe rebuilt her life independently. Uncle David became primary trust administrator. And me? I learned something important. Sometimes the deepest betrayal isn't being hated. It's being used. Being valued only when you're convenient. Being loved only when you're compliant. My parents said they needed space. What they really needed was access. Access to power. Access to control. Access to something they believed belonged to them. And when they lost that access, they finally discovered the cost. Today, my relationship with them is civil. Careful. Different. The trust still exists. Protected. Stable. Exactly as my grandfather wanted. But every year, when my birthday arrives, I remember that dinner. The silence. The humiliation. The key sliding across the table. And I remember something else. The moment they tried to remove me from the family was the exact moment they revealed who had been holding it together all along. And when they told me they needed space, I gave them more space than they ever expected. I froze the trust. And in doing so, I finally stopped letting them rewrite the truth.